Hi, I'm Stacey and welcome to the Book Nook. Today I'm going to go through with you a little guide to Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman is one of my favourite authors and I own quite a few books from him. And I'm excited to get into it and show you what kind of books I think would be best to start with if you're just starting off with Neil Gaiman, or if you've read a couple, which kind of avenues you could go down. So let's get into it. So first I'm going to talk you through a few of his children's books, which I think would probably be a really good place to start, just in general, because they are a lot easier to digest. So the first one I want to talk about is Coraline, which was also made into a film with Dakota Fanning. And this one follows a young girl who moves to a new house with her parents. And she's not very happy there. She finds it all a bit boring and her parents aren't paying enough attention, etc. And one day she finds a door that leads to another place, which looks similar to her own, but is way more fun. And she meets the other mother. And it all gets a little bit more creepy from then on. And I would absolutely recommend this one, but maybe not to younger children because it does get a little bit creepy. Next we have The Graveyard Book, which is the story of Bod, and he was orphaned at a young age, and then he goes to live in a graveyard with several characters, which are quite interesting. My favourite is Silas, by the way. There's not too much that you need to know about this, but it does involve a murder, so maybe it's still a children's book, but again, not for younger children. Also, I completely forgot to mention Neil Gaiman's other books for children, which are Odd and the Frost Giants, which follows Odd, and I believe it's based on Norse mythology, and also Fortunately the Milk, which I haven't read and don't know a lot about. I just know it's a children's book, and I wanted to mention those in case you were interested. The next ones that I wanted to talk about were his adult books, but that are based around fairy tales. And I think the most obvious and probably the most famous one of his for this is Neil Gaiman's Stardust. I have this lovely edition. These are my favourite editions of his, by the way. They've come in lots of different styles, I guess, over the years, and these ones are my favourite by far. So Stardust follows Tristram Thorn, who is trying to prove himself to the woman that he wants to marry. And he says he sees a falling star and she asks him to get the star for her. So he does. He goes off beyond the wall and goes into this unknown kingdom and finds the star, who is in fact a woman. And that's as far as I'm going to go with this. This is a really fun read. It's one of my favourites. It's what got me into it. And I actually saw the film first, which is great. Please do watch the film of Stardust. It has Robert De Niro and Charlie Cox and several other faces that you will know in there. Michelle Pfeiffer is a big one. Yeah, it's an adult fairy tale, but I think I read it as a teenager and I think that was fine. And the next one I wanted to show you, because oh man, is it beautiful, is The Sleeper and the Spindle. And I have this. That was shiny, holy. Yeah, I have this edition of The Sleeper and the Spindle. I can move it so that it's not quite so shiny in your face, that would be great. Yeah. So that's actually in a slip case. So this is the front of it, and this is a really beautiful retelling of Sleeping Beauty. And it's got the most gorgeous drawings by Chris Riddell. I'll just show you one that I really, really love. This is probably one of my favourite ones. It's amazing. So that's one of his short stories that are based on fairy tales. I would also say this is a more adult fairy tale, but I would probably read it as a teenager as well. And then we've also got Snow Glass Apples, which I haven't actually read yet, but I'm dying to. And I've heard that it's along the same vein as this, but based on Snow White. Next, I wanted to talk to you about his mythology books. So he's got a couple, and the first one, I'm going to do the one that came out the most recently, which is Norse mythology. And this one just goes through a few of the Norse tales, but in Gaiman's own style. I would actually highly recommend this one if you're starting with Norse mythology, because it's a really, really good retelling of them. Not even that far off the tellings of them. But I'm a massive fan of Norse mythology myself, so this was a must. And my lovely sister got me this one. Oh, and my lovely boyfriend got me this one. The next one is probably a very famous one. It is American Gods. I have a very old, battered copy of it. I really need to look into getting new copies of some of these books because there are worse battered ones than this. So this follows Shadow, and I can't remember what happens. This follows Shadow, and before he is released from prison, his wife Laura dies in a car crash. It says on the plane, on his way home, he encounters the enigmatic Mr. Wednesday, who claims to be a refugee from a distant war, a former god, and the King of America. And together they embark on a profoundly strange journey across the heart of the USA. So this is absolutely brilliant. It deals with old gods and new gods, and it's wonderful. It's a bit of a chunky one, but it's very much worth it. And they've also made this one into a TV series on Amazon Prime, which has a couple of seasons now. 2 or 3? 3, I want to say. And yes, I would definitely recommend this one. Again, it's more of an adult one, but I read this as a teenager and was fine. So, but it is a chunker. And the next one we have is Anansi Boys, and another one of those beautiful covers. And this follows a character from, well, not really. It follows the sons of a character from American Gods, who is Mr. Nancy. And it just follows his 2 sons and how they live their lives. But Anansi is a trickster spider god in African mythology, so you can kind of see where that goes. One of his sons doesn't really want anything to do with that life, and the other one definitely does. So I think that's as much as you need to know. And it's the same again for American Gods. I'd say adult, but you could read it younger. The next ones are just general fantasy that he has written, and we're going to start off with one of my favourites. So this is Good Omens, and it was co-written with Terry Pratchett. It was one of Neil Gaiman's first novels, and it's is probably my favourite. I love Terry Pratchett too. So this follows quite a few different people, but we're mainly going to be looking at the Antichrist. And it's basically just about Doomsday. But there's lots of different characters that either want to stop Doomsday or keep it going. We also follow Crowley and Aziraphale, who are an angel. No, a demon and an angel. I started with Crowley first. And this was also made into an amazing Amazon show starring David Tennant and Michael Sheen, and you should absolutely watch that because it is fantastic. I do both. I'd read the book and I'd watch it because this gives you so much more detail. But then, because Neil Gaiman was also involved with all of these shows, he has a lot of input and kind of develops the lore in those shows. So, yes, go watch it, go read it. It's brilliant. The next one is my ultimate favourite Neil Gaiman book, and it is Neverwhere. I know a lot of it's kind of divisive. Look, this is so battered. Look at this. It's a very old book. Wow, and he looks super young on the back. That's mental. Anyway, so this one follows Richard Mayhew, who just finds himself in this different world under London, which is, what's it called? I don't know. I haven't read it for a while. I need to reread this book. But he finds himself in a world that is under London and has some of the same. It has some little tidbits of little place names that are absolutely amazing. I don't want to spoil it. But he meets a girl called Dor down there, and there are people after Dor, and he has to try to help her. And honestly, I love this book. I love it so much. I need to read it again. Next one, we have The Ocean at the End of the Lane. Now this one's a bit newer, and so it's following a man going to his childhood home, and that's as much as I can actually remember about this. I remember I didn't actually finish this one, so I'm not sure. I think I must have. I don't even know. But I didn't finish this one. But I have heard a lot of people really love this one. This is their favourite, and this is what they would start with. It's a lot shorter, and from what I read of it, it's quite easy to digest. It's not high fantasy. It's got a bit more of a subtle magic to it, at least at first. So this is definitely one that we would start off with. Again, it is adult, but would happily read it as a teen. And the last one that I actually own is Trigger Warning, which is one of his short story collections. It has several short stories in here, as well as in Smoke and Mirrors and Fragile Things, and also M is for Magic. So a lot of his short stories are in those. I've also read How to Talk to Girls at Parties, which is kind of sci-fi, which is pretty cool. Different for him. Yeah. I would like to read some of those other short story collections, and I know I haven't finished this one yet. I've read some of them, but not all of them. So I'm excited to get to that one. He also has a non-fiction called Art Matters, which is also, I believe, in collaboration with Chris Riddell. And that is a series of essays and kind of speeches that he's done in real life. And he's a wonderful talker. He's really good at capturing your attention and your heart. And I would recommend that one too, although I have not read it. Last but not least, quite obviously, is the Sandman comics, which has been made into an incredible TV show on Netflix. Highly, highly recommend them. I actually didn't get on with the Sandman comics because of the art style. The story, incredible. The art style, wasn't quite sure about that. But that one follows Morpheus, who is the personification of dreams. He is one of the endless, which is like an immortal or powerful being, and it follows his journey, I suppose. But it's also got a lot of other really interesting characters on the way, like Lucifer and like Death. It's just got a lot of really interesting side characters and stories, and I would recommend that too. But have a look at the art style first, because I know for me that kind of put me off a little bit. But I did read the first volume of it before I watched the show. So he has written for a lot of DC comics and publications and things, so you can definitely find more of his work around. He's also written for Doctor Who, and Lucifer, starring Tom Ellis, is created from the character of Lucifer in The Sandman, and he actually voices someone very special at the end of season 3. I loved that. It was brilliant. And obviously, as I've already said, many of his books have been adapted to TV shows, but also radio stories. I don't know how to say that. And audiobooks. It was The Sandman was made into like an audio play almost on Audible. So if you wanted to check that out, please do. And I do believe Anansi Boys is in the works at the moment. So let's go with my top favourites. If I need to organise these books again. So my top favourites. Neverwhere is right up there. That is definitely up there. And so is Good Omens. Good Omens also right up there. Then I would say Norse mythology, because I'm a massive mythology nerd. And then Coraline, which I don't actually own, but I should. So those are my top 4. And I would say the most accessible ones, if you're looking to start reading him, but don't often read fantasy, I would say The Ocean at the End of the Lane is a good one to start with. The Graveyard Book is probably the one I would start with if you're trying to ease yourself into his writing style. And also Norse mythology is a really good one. But then I would say some of his short stories are quite good to start with to get a gist of the way he writes. But I'd go with Norse mythology over the short stories. If you're a bit more into fantasy, American Gods is a lot of people's favourites, but I would personally go with Neverwhere. So that is everything, I believe. If you want to know a little bit more about Neil Gaiman, feel free to ask me any questions down below. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will hopefully see you in the next video. Bye! Neil is one of... Neil, listen to me.